As concern grows over the possibility of a nuclear war following North Korea's nuclear and ballistic missile testings that is stoking tension in the Korean Peninsula and the United States, there have been calls for a total global disarmament of nuclear weapons. Countries meeting at a United Nations conference in New York in July adopted the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, the first multilateral legally binding instrument for nuclear disarmament to have been negotiated in 20 years. The treaty, adopted by a vote of 122 in favor to 1 against, which was voted by Netherlands, prohibits a full range of nuclear weapon-related activities such as undertaking to develop, test, produce, manufacture, possess or stockpile nuclear weapons or other nuclear explosive devices, as well as the use or the threat of use of these weapons.
The nuclear powers refused to participate in the process, making this text largely symbolic. The proponents of the treaty see it as a historical achievement, but the nuclear states deem it unrealistic, believing that it will have an impact on the reduction of the current world stock of some 15,000 nuclear warheads. While the United Nations General Assembly is in the process of signing a treaty on the elimination of nuclear weapons, the Russian side believes that this document does not meet the national interests of the country, say the head of the Arms Control Department of Russian Ministry Foreign Affairs, Mikhail Ulyanov, in an interview with the Russian newspaper Kommersant. We speak to Jean-Marie Collin, the president of the Nuclear Disarmament Initiatives, who followed and participated in the international campaign for the abolition of nuclear weapons.
Pour l'abolition des armes nucléaires. Monsieur Collin, bonjour. Alors, le traité sur l'interdiction des armes nucléaires sera ouvert.
Hello, the Treaty of the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons will be opened for signature at the United Nations on 20th September. In substance, what is this concrete?
Alors, ce qui va changer concrètement, c'est que pour la première fois, véritablement...
So what will change concretely is that the first time we will consider nuclear weapons as illegal weapons, as are chemical weapons and biological weapons, so they will lose their international prestige, and countries holders of these weapons will no longer be able to assert or parade in the same way with the type of weapon. Interest is to show that international humanitarian law is more important than this treaty will strengthen this international law, which will strengthen international security, which will strengthen nuclear non-proliferation. So this is really the interest of this treaty.
Jean-Marie Collin, je le disais à l'instant, les grandes
The great powers are reluctant to sign this treaty. Then what is the worth without their signature? Yes, it was obvious. We knew even before the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons that the large states possessing the nuclear weapon will not come immediately to ratify this treaty of abolition of nuclear weapons. What is to be seen is that last July, 120 states around the world committed themselves and decided to sign this treaty. A very large proportion of these states are Africans of Francophone Africa, Benin, Togo, Senegal, Burkina Faso, Morocco and Algeria, which have committed themselves to the ban of nuclear weapons. It means more than 63% of the states in the world, which means that it is a real voice that has to be heard, and it is this voice that will weigh in the coming months on the states that possess the nuclear weapons, whether Belgium, whether a bit Germany is adhering to the policy of nuclear deterrence. But we can see that it is already has an effect. We know, for example, that nuclear powers like France and the United States are very afraid of this treaty because they understand that it was a system, the means that would truly engage the world into a planet without nuclear weapons. It is for this reason that the United States or France, as I indicated, think that they have extremely strong depressions towards a number of states, be it Sweden, for example, that is a state in Africa, as Senegal, as Benin, as Niger, that we are encouraged not to undergo these international pressures. So this is what will change. And this is how the process will be, to be able to establish itself in a stronger and much more sustainable way.
Alors, Monsieur Collin, vous avez justement travaillé sur la question avec des
You have worked on the issue with African states. What is it to expect from them in this process? We know that they have no nuclear power. Even if a state does not have a nuclear weapon, such as in Africa, all these African states are signatories to another treaty called the Treaty of Nuclear Non-Proliferation. Now, it is in this TNT these African states are committed to working for a world without nuclear weapons, and that it is exactly what they did last July, and in recent years, they have been working for a world without nuclear weapons. They have worked in a more important, that there should be less nuclear proliferation, and precisely to achieve a ban and subsequently to the elimination of nuclear weapons. So, it is really their voice that will weigh on other states that do not want to accede to this process yet. So they will work diplomatically. They will implement a number of international conferences to convince other countries that do not want to sign the treaty of banning nuclear weapons. So their voice is really important. And then I would just like to point out that the voice of an African state or a South American state is as important as the voice of a European state, that the entitled to greater international security, because in the case of a catastrophe, that is, nuclear war or military nuclear accident, these African states will also suffer the consequences. So that is why it is African states have decided where to promote the Treaty of Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons.
Promouvoir le traité d'interdiction des armes nucléaires.